Um, Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being in our session today. Today's session will be covering the basics of TABE Online and how to get started with it. Lee, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good morning, my name is Lee Fang, and I'm the assessment coordinator for Minneapolis Adult Ed.
And my name is Linda Keller. I work with Metro North Adult Basic Ed, and then I also work on the assessment training team with Marty Olson. And joining our session today, we have Michelle Ruskowski, who is from Data Recognition Corporation, who asked to be part of our session too. So the initial part of our training today is going to cover a few new updates from DRC with TABE, and there are links to the vendor table. If you have additional questions, you can go see Michelle out at the vendor table that DRC is hosting too. So there are three different updates that DRC has provided with testing. The first one is called TABE Offline. The second one was a 11-12 writing test that was released. And then there is also a concordance study that they've provided additional information on. So this first slide has to do with TABE Offline. TABE Offline is TABE Online, but it is off. You will not be online when you are taking the test. It started as a pilot in February with Texas Corrections, and it uses the online portal for delivering testing at corrections institutions. So students are tested on non-internet connected computers. All of the test responses are uploaded to the TABE portal for scoring and reporting. And it's very easy to use for students who have little or no testing experience on computers. The next slide has to do with the concordance, that study that was done. And TABE did a study with the high school equivalency to provide score predictors for GED testing, how people had done on the TABE 11-12 testing and how they would potentially do when they took the GED test itself. So the initial slide that I have here is the reading grid. It shows that the minimum passing score with the TABE 11-12 reading is a 536. If they receive a score of a 627, then it would be a GED college ready score in the GED.com system. And then this next slide has to do with predictor scores for math tests with the TABE 11 and 12 series. For seasoned people who remember 9-10, there actually was predictors that were in the back of norms tables books, but this is a good indicator for you to provide to students saying, hey, you're ready to take the reading test, or no, we need to do some more studying before you go and take a test. So the last slide here with the TABE update, there was information that was released in February of 21. They developed a writing test, and the test is available for in-person testing only. That is not available to take via remote testing, and it's not available to do paper pencil either. Its approval is currently with the NRS. It's awaiting and it's pending. It's applicable to use for learners who are testing into levels M, D, and A level of the TABE 11-12. There is only one level and no locator is needed. And DRC staff are scoring the writing test until September of 21, and then it will be local educators' responsibility to begin scoring if that's something that your program is interested. So this is a lovely picture of Michelle, who is our Minnesota rep. Thank you for joining us, Michelle. Her contact information is here, but if you are interested in asking her any additional questions about TABE Offline, TABE writing, and the TABE concordance study, please visit her at the virtual vendor table at Summer Institute today or tomorrow. There's links for when she's going to be available, so please feel free to ask her additional questions. So now we are going to get started with what today's objectives are for today. We're hoping everyone is here because they want to learn more about launching TABE Online at your sites, at your agencies. We're going to talk about the requirements that you need to have in place before you launch testing. We're going to talk about all the different features that are available with TABE Online, and then talk about how to set up test sessions locally at your site, at your sites, and your agency. And then both Lee and I are going to provide lessons learned. Lee's a little more seasoned with TABE Online than I am. Metro North had launched TABE Online testing during intake at our Blaine location before COVID happened. So we have about, a year's worth of testing under our belt at a very small location, probably 300 tests. So Lee's going to provide more volume experience than I can. So thank you for joining us. Again, we have a poll that we're going to launch here because we want to find out a little bit more about the people who are in our session. So if you could take some time and look at the poll questions to kind of give us a little insight on why you're here, that would be great. Okay, how are we doing on results, Mary Kate or Gail?
Only about 34% participated yet.
Oh, there is no right or wrong answer here. We're just hoping that you provide us a little insight. And we've got about 40 slides to cover. So if you have questions, if you can put them in the chat, we're hoping that we have time at the end to cover any questions, but we're really hoping that the slides that we've embedded with the links are going to provide you answers to questions that you had before you landed in today's session. So. All right, so how we looking? So we got about 50% do not know who to contact at their agency. And we've got quite a few that do not know their username and password. And about half have logged in. So I appreciate you sharing that information. So we are going to go on to the next steps. The very first thing that you need to know before being able to get access to TABE Online is you need to know who your point of contact is at your local program. Every agency in Minnesota who has a TABE Online account has a point of contact if they've already created an account. So find out from your program manager, your lead teacher, your lead instructor, who your point of contact is in your agency in order to get your account created if you don't already have an account established. So that's your very first step, okay? Then once you have a username and password to log in and get access to the online account, you need to confirm that your system can handle having TABE Online loaded to, or being able to access it through the internet. So it can be accessed through Windows, it can be accessed through Mac, it can be accessed through Chrome, it can be accessed through Apple iOS. There is a link in this slide that gives you information about how and what the system requirements are. And DRC is updating that constantly. So if the information in there is old and not current, please go out to the tabetest.com to find the newest and latest and greatest system requirements if you don't have your account created. So Everyone needs to choose a point of contact for your agency or program. And if you had a point of contact and that staff left, please contact the help desk at DRC to find out who that individual was, so that so whoever needs to be switched to be the point of contact can be. You need to attend a TABE implementation training. That's like your next step. And if you haven't been at a state-sponsored event and gotten TABE training, that's going to be the most helpful, so you understand the TABE series and the levels that are included. And then you need to find out if you already have an account that exists, or if your account was newly created and verified last fall, because many programs participated in the distribution that Minnesota Department of Ed had purchased computer-based testing, and many programs decided that they wanted to do computer-based testing, and they launched their e-testing account. So if that was done, great. If you haven't created an e-test account yet, that's something that is going to need to be done. If you designated a central office server to host your online testing, that device is going to need to remain on at all times and should not be turned off. My host machine at Blaine is the central office server for our Blaine location. So, and Marty and Jenna had shared this in the last session. They did say that make friends with your local tech person. Lee and I are both going to say that too. Make friends with your local tech, give them chocolate, give them caribou cards, whatever you need to do to get them on board so that they can help you, because they're going to become your new best friends. And I'm going to get a link here shortly, because apparently that first link is not working, and I apologize. But in this next slide, there's a couple different webinars that DRC and tabetest.com have posted. There is an intro to TABE Online, and it was posted in January of 2019. Please watch that video. It's about an hour long. It's going to kind of give you a broad overview of what's all included with the platform and what are the requirements. If you're interested in ordering tests, the link for the ordering form is right here. There's actually a wonderful document that they've created called Quick Start Guide. That link is found here. That's about a 3-page document that really gives you all the basics on how to set up test sessions, how to create user accounts, how to create student accounts. Great document. Whenever I've been asked about how to get started, that's the go-to document that I send to people. And then there are lots and lots of TABE Online videos that are posted. The link is here, but I do believe that we may have this slide embedded several different times in this session, because there's quick start user guides, there's online managing users, there's student management, there's lots of different items out there. They've got videos, they're helpful videos, they're through Brainshark. Please access them whenever you have questions to refer to. So, oops. All right. So the next step after you've got access, you have to have a data manager assigned to your agency, and that data manager, they can have multiple titles. In our case, I'm the accountability coordinator with Metro North. I'm the data manager, but I'm the one that creates the test sessions, creates the usernames, creates the student records, or provides direction for staffing to do those responsibilities. But that person is going to be the one who manages your online account data, and they're going to manage all the staff user accesses, as well as all the permissions that are associated with having access to TABE Online. So, all right. The next steps after you get your account created, you're going to connect to the Insight portal. You are going to add either a site or just have one universal site. You're going to add staff and grant them whatever permissions that you want. with Metro North, I gave everyone all the different permissions to have access to them because I was not concerned about what was going to happen in their system. But then once you add your sites, you're going to create test sessions, you're going to create student records in the portal, you're going to register and assign students for the test sessions. And then you're going to, most important, you're going to run a trial run, a practice session. Cannot stress this enough. Don't feel that you have to do a broad, huge testing session with 75 people in your agency the first time you're trying this. Try it, become familiar with it, learn the nuances of it, and then move forward with planning what you're going to do with the next stage of testing. So, and after you do that, after you've done your trial run, you can get your results and you can generate some really great reports. Those results are done and they're uploaded within 15 minutes to their site. So you can get a diagnostic to provide students feedback on the areas it is that they need to work in too. So, all right, so the next few slides are going to be visuals. This is what your login page looks like. The link that's on here is the login page to get into the system. I've obviously got my username in there. If you've got your username, most programs assign the username, whatever your email address is. If you have an account and you have a username and you don't remember your password, super easy. Click on forget your password. They'll send you a link. The next slide, you're going to see the visuals and you're going to see DRC Insight and My Products. And when you click on My Products, it's going to generate to this landing screen that's going to give you some updates to like different notifications from the DRC applications and any new device checks, new system status that you need to check on. But you have, if you hover over the top, you can see TABE and My Applications. When you select My Applications, that's going to generate you into the next screen. That's going to provide you a drop-down menu with all of the different menus that you are going to have access to in the portal. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Lee to jump on too. Lee, what are the most frequent menu choices that you use in the drop-down application screen?
Hi, certainly all those can get used any given time, but the one that I would say that in my experience at Minneapolis is that obviously student management and test management to report delivery. Those are really the main one that you would typically use. Mm-hmm. Obviously for data entry, enroll a student, to creating a test session, which you're going to go into a couple minutes here. And then obviously polling reports that the results that to share with students, or to make sure that they get onto SID. So those three, I would say those are the main ones that a staff would primarily use.
Thank you. And then for my purposes, with there's some different tabs that I access in here. The license dashboard is going to be the location where you're going to see how many test units you have left in your account and when they were added. The general information tab is going to provide you like a library of documents that they've uploaded for you to search. There's lots of great PDFs of things that you can download. And then the central office services is kind of the techie side of it. You may not have to access that regularly, but if you do and you're the central office server, your devices, then you will have to access that.
Linda, I was going to jump into that,
Okay.
that central office. That's kind of where the document that you, it would be nice to share with your IT person, because that's where all the requirements, configurations, whatnot, that would be very useful for them to know so that they could set you up properly.
Yes, exactly. That's my tech guy and I had updated my server at the beginning of July because there were some updates that came out, and yeah, There's lots of different submenus in each of those menus. So feel free to explore like those different menus, but primarily you're going to be using student management, test management, and then the report delivery to get the results of the test session. So, and again, we did put this slide in earlier, but we can't stress how important it is to like know where this is. There's a link to it, but there's lots of great how-to videos that you can refer back to and watch regularly, and they're all found here.
And I was going to add that it's those videos are really detailed. You really want to go through those. If you have questions or you want to refresh, those are super great video. They went into great detail about every different part of the testing, whether setting up testing or pulling up scores or what those actually means.
Exactly. So, okay. So then our next slide is just a visual of how to create a user in your portal. So this would be a staff person. Not a lot of fields that you have to record, but you give them a first name, a last name, and an email. That's pretty much all you need. And then you assign whatever permissions it is that you want them to have. So then this next screen is the student management screen. Again, there's a few things that you'll need to put in when you create a student record, but they're pretty limited. You do need to put a last name in, a first name in, a date of birth, and a gender. One of the practices that Metro North has done, and I don't know if Minneapolis has done this also, Lee, but Metro North actually put the SID badge ID in this screen as well, because there's an area to put that information in.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we do. We, in fact, in TABE, in DRC, it says student ID, but we have elected to use the badge ID to kind of mash that with the student's record. So that's helpful as well.
Okay. Did you just lose my PowerPoint?
Yes, we did.
Okay, because my Adobe just said, hey, do you want to update? And I said, no. And gotta love technology. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Okay. I'll be back in a second. Where did this go? Goodness gracious. I totally kicked that out. Okay, just give me a second. Lee, are you able to see the next slide that's up so we can keep people moving?
No, actually, yeah, no.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull them up to share them?
You're
You're almost there, right?
I'm relaunching it here. I'll be back in a second. I'm so sorry. This has happened during sessions when it wasn't virtual either. And I'm like, okay, show must go on. We'll get it loaded again. Does anyone have any questions so far as we're reloading this the Google slide presentation? Has anyone had any questions so far? Are there any in the chats that we haven't answered yet?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Okay, so we're gonna try this again. Here we go. It's still loading, so, okay. Awkward silence, I'm sorry.
So Linda, oh, here we go. Okay, great. We're seeing the first slide now.
Okay.
So, and I believe we were on 26.
Okay. All right, was it the managed student screen? That's where we were?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Lee, did you have anything else that you needed to add to that student screen, or are you good? Okay. All right, so the next slide is a visual of if you have a student who needs accommodations, TABE Online does provide 1 1/4, 1.5, and 2 times the allotment for a testing session. So if there's a learner in your program that needs to have accommodations provided, that can be done through TABE Online. So, and then I do believe the next window is it's a screen that both Lee and I are going to cover. So this is a screenshot of when you're creating a testing session. There's many different ways that you can have a testing session launched at your site. If you choose, you can choose a locator where it will pre-populate into the level of the testing that a student needs, or you can just create an individual session for 11 reading or 12 math or 11 language. One of the practices that we did at Metro North prior COVID when we were doing online testing is we did the locator with the math, and then we had everyone in the same testing room. Even though they may possibly test into different levels, that was a practice that we had used. Lee, I think that this is where you get to share now Minneapolis's experience for setting up testing sessions.
You're muted, Lee.
Yep, you gotta turn your audio
Lee,
on.
you're muted.
Thank you.
I don't know if the next slide is the one that we're going to cover, but when you're setting up test session, consider the various different options that you have. That could be site specific to, do you want to do it by class? And this could be thinking about post-testing type of environment, or entry where that way it's, you can pull reports. Sometimes reports could be very useful when you're pulling reports. So think about dates, the types of tests that you're going to either trimester type of session, quarterly. If you consider those options, it will be very useful when you're pulling reports or when you're creating new session. That way your staff, because what will end up happening is you'll end up seeing a whole list of sessions that it will become very cumbersome when you go through the list. So I would advise staff to consider those options when creating class sessions.
And with Metro North's limited experience of creating test sessions, we launched TABE Online after we converted from 910 to 1112. And because we were doing that intake, we were calling it Blaine intake with locators. But what we were running into 6 months in is what we were finding is that there were a lot of individuals that we were locating in person search that already had 1112 tests in their record and SID. And so then we had to get creative with creating individual test sessions. And so and this was something that DRC has talked about during different online presentations. Think about what makes logical sense to your individual program and think about how you want to access it. So if you need to access past testing sessions, that you'll be able to find what it is that you're looking for. That's lessons learned from both of us. I'm actually stealing some of Lee's ideas for going forward with online testing at Metro North. So my thought is everybody's going to get a locator. And so we're going to give everybody relocate, and then we're going to look and sit, and hopefully there's not any duplicated testing that's going to happen. So, all right, next slide. So when you create a test session and you add students, there will be a roster that is generated, and those screens are in this last slide. Over on this right side, you can see an action column. There's different, if you hover over the buttons, you'll know what the drop-down menu will provide. But you can edit sessions, and you can print test tickets, and you can print test rosters. So this next slide is it's a sample test roster to show how many people are registered for your session. Obviously, I put my name in there so that we didn't compromise any students' names, but you'll be able to check off who came into your test session, who didn't land there. But everyone will get a test ticket assigned, and that test ticket will need to be cut up and shared with each specific individual, because there's a unique username and password that's created for every test session. So that is something that's part of the process in delivering computer-based testing. And then here's just kind of a closer look at what it looks like. They print them off. I believe there's like 8 or 10 per page that they print off. So if you have a really large test session, you're probably going to get a couple of them. Get a paper cutter, because you're going to need it. Otherwise, you're going to be manually cutting those test tickets up every time you have a test session. So, and then I think this is Lee's expertise area. Now, again, here we go.
So once obviously testing is completed, then the next step is obviously to pull reports. And under the tab up on GRC Insight, there's a tab where it says scoring and reporting. You pull that up, and this is the screen that you will see is in the report delivery. You'll see 3 different types of reports that you can pull, which is the abstract, the on-demand abstract, on-demand reports, and on-demand roster. If you want to go to the next screen there. And for the on-demand abstract, is a report that you could pull by dates. So you could isolate by dates, and it will be, the results will come back in the form of dates, alphabetical order. And in this case, it's a report that you could, let's say if you are really seasoned into it and you want to import a certain amount of scores within a period of 2 weeks, you can do that. You can use this format, this one, to do that, where you could work with input it onto SID without having to physically enter the score onto SID. I would recommend that if you're doing this, I would work with Urban Planet to get this done. There is a tutorial document that helps you with that, but I would work with Urban Planet to get this if you're going to try to import a large amount of tests. Minneapolis, obviously, we have done both, where we have done individual polling reports from TABE, and then obviously entered that into SID, and we have done a chunk of a group of test results and with some checking, and then importing onto the record as well.
And that's, I was gonna say, that's a huge staff time saver if you choose to do that route, but I'm gonna agree with Lee, work with Urban Planet to make that happen locally.
And it's really, it can be really time saving, especially if you have a large program and you work with a big number of students. So this could be time saving for your staff that could end up doing other things other than trying to pull those information and get them into SID. Next screen, please. And the other report that we have is on the on-demand report. And this is the report that I would say most programs will probably likely use. It has 2 types of report. The on-demand has 2 types of report. One is the individual profile. The other is the individual portfolio. And there's a locator profile in there, which I know that Minneapolis hasn't used a lot of that, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. But for the individual profile, when you pull that report, and Minneapolis has used the PDF form to pull the reports. In the reports, it will have student name, test forms, test scores, obviously, and an NRS level, as well as if the student, based on the test results, have they made MSG, have they made level gains? So they either say yes or no on that as well. So that's good information. The other piece that is really important, and I think teachers or students, especially instructor, would like to have, is we call it the correlation charts, which gives a very specific detail of the content area, and it will show the number of questions, number that attempted questions, and number of points gained from those specific areas, so that it has a performance review with either non-proficiency, partial proficiency, or proficiency on it. And those are really good to share with student one, and obviously for a teacher to share with their students during conferencing. And so that's the one that I think it's really important for teacher to have, as well as for student if you're conferencing them. The other one that this is probably mainly for staff and teacher is the individual portfolio. That report will pull all the other tests that the individual student has taken since online is available. And that will be one that either a teacher could ask for, and so they could see a progress of the students over time. And this would be for a good progress post-testing type information to have. Let's see if we go to the next screen. And then for the on-demand roster report, this one is mainly, I would say mainly for viewing. And this one is pulled by individual test session or class. So it would be nice to have, if you're going to print this for a teacher, to pull this report and say, hey, for example, we have reading 255 for Minneapolis. I want all the scores and what test form the student take for that particular class. It would pull the report and you could print it. Unfortunately, it's mostly for viewing, so the printing might cut off sections of the information, but it will have the student name, the test form, the scores, obviously, and NRS level on it. So this will be one that a teacher might want to have when they're talking to the student as well. This report comes back fairly quick. So if you are working with a student and would like to get it, share the information right away, this might be the one that you want to get. The individual profile does take time for it to come back. So if it scores all you're interested in, this will be the report. Do you have anything to add, Linda?
I don't. I know that we have about 5 minutes left to cover what's left of our slides here. So I thank you so much for sharing your knowledge base on that. So appreciated. So the next slide is, there's a link here. If you've got students that are not familiar with computer-based testing, they can go out and practice and do sample tests. It's called Online Tools Training. And so the link, if that can be shared, it's in the chat box. Thank you. Actually, okay. We'll go back to that other slide at the end here. I'm sorry, it must have gotten out of the order, but These are the different samples of the subjects that you can take, that students can try to take some online testing. So there's reading, math, language, and writing. They've embedded their Class E testing because that's a test that is approved through DRC, but it's not approved for use here in Minnesota. But yeah, have them go out and do the online tools training. Have your teachers go out and try the online tools training to practice so they know what students are going to see when they're taking these tests, because that's super helpful. This is what the login screen is. They're always going to give you a username and a password to get in. So this is just what it's going to look like, but that information will be in that online tools training when you land on it. And then there hasn't been any questions during today's session yet about remote testing. Remote testing, we're both going to recommend you need to be familiar locally with how to deliver online testing before you consider using remote testing with TABE Online, just like you do with CASAS. You just have to be familiar with launching online computer-based testing locally. There are some links to informational webinars that if you're interested, there's an informational webinar about remote testing, and then there's a training webinar about remote testing. So please feel free to watch that. Something with, actually, I'm going to go back to this slide because I missed it. There is going to be a second round of computer-based testing distribution. Some people participated in programs, participated in the first round, but there are still many tests that are remaining. There will be a survey in a Google form that's going to be sent to the consortia fiscal agents. If your program is interested in launching online testing and haven't done that already, make sure that you ask for testing to get loaded into your account. Every consortia in Minnesota AB is eligible to request the test, even if they didn't get them in the first round. So the publisher's requirements still need to be met in order to accept the test administration. So just go back with and watch those webinars, designate a point of contact in your program, and then more details are going to be coming out later this fall. So just contact your consortium manager if you didn't see the email yourself, if you're interested in getting more computer-based testing. So if you have any questions, Lee and I can be contacted. Please contact us. There's always questions when when something's not super familiar, but please feel free to reach out. We'll respond as quickly as we can within, my goal is always 2 business days whenever I get an email that lands in my email box. But if you have more specific questions, you can always reach out to Michelle. And again, please touch base with her at the vendor table. They're here to answer questions too. But if you need practical experience from any of us users already, contact Lee or I. And we want to thank you for attending today's session. I want to thank Lee for being willing to join the session and share your experience, because that's how the rest of us learn. And thank you for attending Summer Institute, and enjoy the rest of your sessions that you're going to be attending. We'll hang out here for another 5 minutes if anybody has any additional questions.